My name is Ogi, and I will be sharing some stuff about tools most of the programmers use. I will cover most of the tools that are really necessary and really good for your health, work productivity, work life balance. As I introduced, tools every programmer needs. I will start with some of the simple stuff that most of the like everybody started in school, and it doesn't have to be in a school where you were learning to become engineer, but even in the earlier age. I would start with Paint as a program, and pen and paper as a tool is one of the most powerful stuff you could actually have, because when you do not understand how something works and how some of the stuff you're going to code or you're going to design, pen and paper always come in handy. You can draw the initial structure, the initial idea, and then based on those drawings, you can solve many issues in IT world, as well as continue developing with some of the software like Figma, or even coding backend and front end, doesn't matter what is it. So those are the most powerful, in my opinion. And a lot of people I know use these, and even if they are in coding for many years or decades, they still think it's really a reliable source of problem solving tools. The third stuff I would really want to mention that came to my understanding when I started working as a backend developer is rubber duck debugging. And rubber duck debugging is basically, I bought a rubber duck that you use when you go to bed when you're a kid. If you have an issue with something, you are not getting correct data from the backend or stuff like that, and you're having issues resolving that, the good idea is to explain that to somebody. But if everybody is busy in the office, like nobody is going to drink water, make coffee, you just talk to that, and you retrace all the steps that you've done. This maybe sounds silly, but this is also really amazing stuff, because as everything in life, programming takes practice, and by explaining what you do to someone makes your knowledge even healthier and better. There is a saying, if you can't explain something to someone, you don't really understand it. And basically that's what rubber duck debugging is. As a fourth stuff, which I also really like and I like to practice, is water. Always drink a lot of water. And that's really important for programmers, because you want to stay healthy, and you sit a lot, and you spend a lot of time just staring at the screen, and water will make you stand up, take a walk, and get you healthy. When we are with health, I want to add some other stuff. Like, it's not actually a tool that every programmer needs, but it's something that we all should try to have. It's an ergonomic chair or a desk, because in order to stay healthy and be productive, it would be really helpful for you to have an ergonomic chair or a desk, and that would make a really good setup for your work environment. And I would also include it in programming tools, because it is actually an object or a tool. It will help you have a good posture, and you won't feel slow. You won't have like any back pain, which can really cause a lot of trouble for the programmers. Besides that, frequent breaks are really important, which takes me back to the water in the first tab. When you're working in an office, like water break is really important by the water machine, because when you take a break and you go to get some water, you actually have conversation with your colleagues and talk about stuff that are not related to programming, or you can talk about some issues which can also help you solve it. And the break helps you solve an issue which you have been staring for hours. And you all the time you think you are, I need one more minute or 10 more minutes to solve it, but it takes an hour or 2 or 3 hours. And then I think it's really good idea to take a break every 45 minutes and get a glass of water, and maybe get out to the balcony or outside of the house, take a breath of fresh air, and that will help you be more productive and do more work. Besides that, one thing I also practice because I have spent a lot of time looking at the screen is eyes exercise. So besides like having blue light filter glasses or something like that, it's really important to watch in the distance. How to say, like there's a saying here in Serbia that the people who are living on the mountains and who guard sheep and cows, and they have the best eyesight because they always look in the distance, and that way they practice their eye muscles, and that will help them have a good eyesight for a very long time. This was a little, how to say, digression of the topic, but I really thought that that would be a good idea just to think about it, because health comes first and everything else should be afterwards. Besides that, some of the stuff I personally prefer to use, and I would like to, if some of the colleagues here on the call want to add, feel free to do so, because I didn't want to get too technical about some of the stuff, and we all have our own preferences. How do we track time? How do we keep our personal and project task management better? So if feel free to step in, I don't mind at all. Basically, the productivity. Some people are not really the fans of Jira boards, Trello, or Azure, or any of those stuff, and they just like to write the stickers, which is what I do sometimes. I do it on my phone, actually. I use the To-Do Microsoft list, which is not maybe somebody's first choice, but that works best on my Android device. And just to have a reminder is a really good stuff, like remind you every couple hours or every day at certain time, give you an alert and stuff like that. That will increase your productivity by a lot, because you shouldn't be ignoring your past self as of your future self. Like past Augie told me to finish this feature and I didn't, so I should feel ashamed. And the other stuff, which is really the second item on this list, is time tracking. And in this case, I will mention Harvest, which we use here in UX Cabin. When I first started using Harvest, I didn't think much of it, but a couple of times I have been looking through it and I realized how powerful tool that is. You can not only track time, but you can just track every minute of every feature you're working on, and that will increase your productivity by a lot. This way you will realize, like, okay, so I have been working on this PHP stuff for 2 days and that is too much. And then I realized that I don't know this stuff as much as I should. So I should devote additional time and learn the PHP so I can be more productive. And this is huge help for me. And I am not always dedicated to completing the tasks that I add after checking my time tracked, but I really try to perform better. The third stuff is personal project task management. This is also part of the to-do list, but personal productivity, which is a Microsoft to-do list for me, and personal project is stuff that I wanna do in my free time after I finished at work. So if I'm like devoted to building lures, as I like for fishing, I tend to like add some stuff to the to-do list for that. This is really amazing because you gotta have your personal life organized as well, especially when there are deadlines and there are stuff that are important for work as for your personal and your family life. And the fourth stuff, and really probably the most important stuff here, is coffee. Standing from your desk and going to make a coffee is like going outside of the apartment to a mountainside for me, because you just stand up, you go to your kitchen and you just stand there watching for coffee to boil or for the machine to make it for you. Gives you like a moment or two to think about the stuff that you're working on or something else. And that can actually help you solve a lot of issues which you have been working on for a long time, coding wise, and just think about some stuff. Take a break. It's really nice. And here on this slide, I want to mention some of the software. So In tools that every programmer needs, the IDE comes first. So IDE is an environment where you do coding. I've done some of the explanation before in the GitHub 101, and I'm just not going to demo it because there are too many IDEs for this. And it's important to know a couple IDEs. But why couple? Why not just only one and master it? I think it's important to know a couple IDEs, like, for example, IntelliJ and Visual Studio Code and NetBeans, which is used for Java development, just so you understand what is best suited for your needs. So later, when you develop as a person and as a developer, you will understand and find that perfect IDE, and that will help you in your life a lot. The second program is called Postman. It's one of the stuff I prefer to use. I don't want to go really technical on this, but it actually helps you resolve a lot of back-end and front-end issues without having to bother a colleague, or just understand what's the data that you have been receiving from the back-end and what are you sending. It's a really amazing, lightweight, fast, and reliable software. The third one is a database. So as a database, I would probably recommend SQL Pro and MySQL. And those are the two that I really know and that I actually used from the day one when I started coding back in high school. And the fourth one is a digital color meter. This is really great for me. I think it's only Mac only application, and it helps me get the color that I want. And it really simplifies my CSS life and the design for some of the stuff, for the initial design and for the structure building. If I have screens with a lot of moving parts, I change the color. So I just use the digital color meter to copy my hex code and color code the entire screen, so I know what's where. And the fifth one, and really important one, is ID extensions. Like these are the stuff that help you code in general, like sort some of the stuff, make your JSON object format correctly, or just sort all your code so it looks pretty and readable for any developer or software engineer, or whatever you want to call it, comes after you, can read it and it says thank you for making the code really good. Also really good for sorting the images, especially when the project has a lot of icons and different extensions, SVGs, PNGs, JPEGs, or whatever. There is an ID extension for Visual Studio Code, which can help you sort these and display each and every single of those on the side of the editor. And the last, and I would say two technical stuff I would like to mention, which I use often, is XML and HTML validators. These are open source. You can find them on the web, just typing a XML validator or HTML validator, and it will open a small window for you where you can check if your XML is in a valid structure or HTML is in a valid structure. This helps a lot because these are touchy old code, and if it gets bigger, it can get really messy, and somewhere you could forget to close a tag or just forgot to put an exclamation mark somewhere in XML, and it will break your entire code. Okay, so in this slide in communication, I also thought about this, and I was actually going through old Lunch and Learns, and I saw the Fisher's Lunch and Learn, and I realized that it is one of the really, really important features and actually tools that every programmer should have, or in general, any IT expert in any branch. It's a communication. So headphones and mic, having a clear voice and being able to hear everything your colleague says actually also requires to have a stable internet connection, which is also important. I forgot to mention is really amazing. Like I really enjoy hearing people with really good microphones, and it just makes you sound more professional and makes you sound more serious, in my opinion. So I don't know. These are the only headphones I have at the moment, and I don't know if they sound good But I have strange color of my voice, so I mumble a lot, and maybe it's not because of headphones. Anyway, camera and lights also from the Fisher's setup. These are really nice stuff. Being able to display yourself in a proper light, so to say, and have a clear image and a great work environment as a fourth stuff. Being in a silent room during your meetings, not having anybody interrupted is amazing tool to have, because you'll be able to respect what your colleagues are talking and presenting, or them the code or whatever it is. And also it will probably help you be more productive. It's not the case for everybody. I must say, I know people that they enjoy being in public during their work. Like they just like the hum of the crowd and enjoy working in the coffee shops or restaurants, or just in a big corporate offices with a lot of phone calls and all that noise from a lot of people. I don't mind it as well. I don't even listen to the music when I work ever. I just don't need it. So it's all about preferences. Okay, this is one of the first stuff that every programmer works with when he starts, even in the earliest coding. Like the Stack Overflow is a website where IT professionals meet and they share knowledge. In my opinion, that's pretty much what it is in a nutshell. So I want to say Stack Overflow is probably the most powerful stuff you can use, but you have to know how to use it. It's not only just, it has a ton of code over there. It has a lot of examples, issues, a lot of comments on the posts, people explaining, and some of those are wrong, some of those are really good, but rarely it's something you can actually use. Most what you use Stack Overflow is you use it to find a particular problem and how to solve it. So if you found a problem over there, you will probably find a solution somewhere in the comments. Not exactly what you need, but the structure and the explanation is what you seek. And that's how you build the portfolio on the Stack Overflow. By commenting on issues and explaining to people how they can do something, giving them suggestions, and in many variation helps a lot and gives you more like similar like karma points that we have on the Slack. And by commenting, you're getting upvoted, and those upvotes stay there forever, and they help a million of coders. And it's really amazing to actually see somebody build that profile. What you can find there is limitless, everything about any language you ever heard, even the old language like COBOL, Fox, and even some of the binary code like assembler or stuff like that. It's pretty amazing. The third stuff is the issue search, which I mentioned. It is how you build portfolio. And as a coder, the best way is to practice, like mathematics. So getting better at mathematics, that's going to happen through practice, like doing simple equations over and over, then building up the equations with more unknowns. And that's all practice. It's all pretty much the same in basics, but it's not. And the practice will get you to understand every programming language. And that is the issue search. On Stack Overflow, you have an issue search where you can filter out based on the language. So if you have time and if you have will and knowledge, you should go to Stack Overflow and search for the issues for a particular language that you're proficient in and try to answer and help people solve some of the stuff. That not only that will help that particular person, but it will help anyone ever having that issue and like the reach is really big. It's millions of people. So I would highly recommend that. The issue search helps build a community. So programming languages rate by usage. So the most used programming languages go to the highest on the ladder. But it's not only the most used, but the languages with best communities. And by best communities, I mean the most issues, like, because the issues is what build community. Like JavaScript is the most popular language in the world, and it has the most issues, and the most people use it, and the most people try to help. It's same with Java, C Sharp, Python, and probably other frameworks for the JavaScript. When I started doing development, I started with Java, but not by a choice, but because that was the only modern language that existed in my university. But Java had really good community, and that is also what helped me through over the years. And the community is initially built on the Stack Overflow, and before that on the forums and boards that were trying to do some actual work using Java from 95 and onwards. Also, I would like to mention 3 softwares that are familiar to all of us, and one that I recently discovered that really, really helped me figure out some of the stuff for the web and mobile applications we're developing in UX Cabin. It's a bundle phobia. It's a funny name, but it actually lives up to it. If you are considering adding any package, and by package mean any pre-built feature for web or a website or a mobile application, in React, it comes as an NPM package. And those NPM packages, they take some space on your application. So some of those take kilobytes, some of those take bytes, and some takes megabytes. And that is where bundle phobia comes in. Basically, if you're having an issue which a package can solve, for example, the latest one in my case was a drop-down picker and a progress bar. So I wasn't sure which one to use. Like, both drop-down picker libraries were really good and were used by a lot of people on Stack Overflow. I checked, and on the Git, but they had different sizes. So what I did, I checked those packages on Bundlephobia to see which one takes more space. And if you take a package which takes a lot of space, it can slow down an application, and that's bad for the user experience, and that can be bad for your work in general. If you work on older PCs, but in general, it would be bad for the application. And I saw that one of those 2 packages were really big, and that would hurt the development of the application. So I went with the other one. But it's an amazing site, and it's a bundlephobia.com, and I suggest I will post a link in the Notion in the description for this as well. And the second one is Notion. This is also one of the software which I got introduced in the UX Gathering. I often go through the Notion just looking at this software because it is so powerful. Like, it's for me, in some cases, it is like when cell phones came and you didn't have to use a radio, camera, and I don't know, letters anymore. You could send text, you could listen to radio on your phone or take a picture. It's a basically all in one. And the most important thing in this is the documentation. I consider documentation really important for productivity, future development, and app quality. And this is what Notion gives you. In Notion, you can build pages or from the templates for the documentation where you can explain step by step from your development, and every inch of your application can be addressed to and explained in English and not in any code language or something like that. And anybody coming to the project can learn from you and be thankful for you on this. The third one, which is also considered communication, is Slack. I used the Slack before, and I would probably use it when it was in beta if I knew about it. It's just an amazing program. There are those packages you can install for Slack, like a calendar. It's for change your status to meeting. You can have karma that we got from Stas, which is also amazing. Tries to make you think about, like, hey, I have this team member which I never talked to, and then we can have that kind of connect, which is pretty awesome in my opinion. And we can talk about stuff. It can be a little weird for sure, but I think it's great. So communication, having like a person from the other side of the world always there for you to help you or you to help him is really nice. And I would recommend Slack to anybody for sure. And the fourth one is Loom. Loom is a software where if you're not a fan of writing documentation, which can be really tedious for some of the developers, and a lot of people are not fan of those, and they even hire people to write documentation for the software because I think every developer should write his own documentation because nobody explains it better than the person who wrote it. But the Loom helps you put all that in a video. As they say, a picture says 1,000 words, and that's pretty much what this is. This is like a video recording software which you can explain and present stuff that you want to talk about or demo it or whatever. I like it, but I think it's too heavy, at least for my PC. It slows it down. It doesn't work well with Android Studio, but it's really helpful. It can help everybody and understand the stuff you're working on. So I would recommend as well. So to get to the conclusion about what all these stuff do for you, well, as the first item on the list says, it's a quality of work and improvement. Notion comes first to my mind in this because of the documentation and the to-do list, as well as quick communication, reaching out to your teammate, to your colleague, helping find a solution, having a break, taking coffee or water, or just getting out to the balcony to take a breath of fresh air, or it's all improving the quality of the work. Besides that, like, keep everything tracked and your tasks completed on time. It helps you get better life-work balance, which is what we all tend to and want to achieve. Yes, the third item is helps professional growth. I would tie this to a Stack Overflow. A lot of people don't think much of Stack Overflow, but it's one of the first and one of the, if not the oldest tool that can track your professional accomplishments and how are you good at explaining people and how you're growing as a developer. I think it's amazing. Helps other coders, users, coworkers, all the software from the previous tab, Zoom, Loom, Slack, Notion, those all combined gives us the information, and most of the time it's all about the information and information sharing and how do you present it, and do the right people have the access to the information they need. I wanted to say a lot of things, but I'm not sure if I'm going to get too technical, and it wasn't the goal for me. I wanted to talk more about if you have like, also the amazing stuff is if you have like your laptop pad, so you can take it out. It's also a tool a developer needs. Like you want to stand from your desk and go to your bed and you just take that laptop stand. If it has really soft edges, it's amazing to put it in your lap and just enjoy changing a little bit the work environment, which can really influence the work you do and help you overcome some issues, or just enjoy it. Go by the window and look through the window while you do some coding, or you listen to some explanations or stuff like that. Okay. Anybody has any questions?
I think it was pretty cool that you talked about these tiny things that we could do every day to feel much better at the same time that we work on a computer, because this type of stuff is usually not mentioned too often, and it's really not that hard. It's just getting used to do these tiny things every day and at all times. I guess I would add something to it. I would recommend to everyone to have like a yoga mat or like a soft surface to put on in the floor and do some stretching. Like it doesn't have to be a lot, but it helps a lot. At least for me, because my posture sometimes gets funny without me noticing because I'm working and I'm not focusing on my posture. And I have some chronic pains. And since I have been stretching, those pains are gone.
Yeah, I actually used that before. It's really amazing. Even the ball that you sit on, like it can help you or keep your posture without noticing straight, which is awesome.
One thing I use that's been a game changer for me is a little like foot heating pad thing. Because a lot of times, like it's either a cool day or it's the winter and I'm not wearing shoes to work. And sometimes, slippers or stuff makes your feet sweaty. So I just have this little heating pad thingamajig for your feet that just sits under my desk and I can turn it on when I want. And it's nice and cozy on those cold days.
Yeah, that sounds really amazing. Really nice. Yeah. Actually, I wear slippers all the time.
I really love the way you presented it. Like, the concerns of taking in mind some holistic approach to person we are as a developer. Like, there are a lot of things to take in mind when it comes to being in the art of producing code.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks.
Yeah, I appreciate what you were talking about, productivity there. The science on productivity is really interesting and showing that like getting up and taking that coffee break or going and chatting with coworkers around the water cooler, proverbially, I suppose here, is really good for productivity. And it's actually better for productivity and staying in your flow state than it is to just try to just pound it out, try and stick it out for 2 hours at a time. And that just is not as productive as walking to the balcony and breathing some fresh air for a quick moment. So thanks for reminding me about that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Exactly my thoughts. Like that really helps a lot of times.
There are a few things that I might add to this. Like, I think it's important to be all the time connected with the community around. So for me, it's super important to be subscribed to blogs or pages that at some point are challenging you, like with some cool information or articles or things that you want to learn in the near future. That's one important thing. And the other is automation tools. As developers, we have a lot of power and leverage to work on some things that we can automate and have a bot doing things for us. So it's important to start knowing some of the tools related with automation to avoid doing repetitive things in your workflow that you can avoid if you have a bot working for you. That's an important thing to have in mind, I think.
Yes, you're 100% right. I wanted to mention like some of the stuff I really enjoy. Like it's a code arena. So basically sometimes there are small challenges from a different programming languages, which can really, hook you up, and you could start like thinking about learning some other language, which is really important and can help you solve some problems on a much simpler scale in existing programming languages you're working on, like doing some small coding for the Raspberry Pi or anything like that.
I just had to mention that when you had the slide up there talking about water, I actually got a cup of water.
I would just want to say that it's really important. Like doctors say, it's important to always have water where you're sitting a lot, and that will make you stand up, and it's really good for your health because people are not built for sitting. We are built for standing straight up and for running
And walking.
Yes.
And also sleeping. Sleeping is the elixir of life. I would say it's something that we, at these busy times, we kind of trust, but I think it's an important one, especially if you're working with your brain across the day.
Yeah. People who are not really working in this area. I have one digression. I was like 16 and I got my first smartphone and I wanted to root it. And it was I think it was HTC or something like that. And I enjoyed and I wanted to root it and change the operating system, make it dark mode and stuff like that. And in the process, I managed to do it. I didn't take out the SIM card and it actually went online and downloaded a bunch of updates. It was like a 400 megabytes of updates, but it downloaded from my SIM card and I didn't have internet. Back then I had only wireless and I had to go and work in construction in order to pay my bill because my father didn't want to pay it. And I was for 3 months in construction during all summer. And I was working from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And when I came home after those 12 hours of lifting bricks and blocks and stuff like that, I would sit or lay still for an hour. And I was like a new guy. I wasn't tired anymore, And when I got into coding, I was like coding for 5 hours, for 4 hours. And then I was like, I would sleep for 10 hours straight because I got burned out.
Mm-hmm. Regarding what Hernan said about the sleep. So the other day I was hearing a podcast with an expert in like sleep science, right? And he was talking about the quality of sleep. And he mentioned one interesting fact, which is there is some research that shows us that if someone is sleeping in the dark and you point him with a laser, like these things that you use to point out stuff on boards and stuff, like you get brain activity from that person. So only just a tiny bit of light can activate your brain. And I started to try to sleep in my room without any LEDs and any lights. So I just disconnect everything that is electronic and has an LED in it. And I think it has improved my sleep by a little bit, or maybe it's psychologically, but the research is there.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. It's also recommended like not to look at your phone for I don't know how long or any screens before you go to sleep. It will actually improve your quality of sleep.
Yeah, that's so hard. So hard.
I have a question. So do you guys find that you're more productive when you're a little bit in a frenzy, like stressed out, or you just kind of crank, or when you are completely relaxed and you can kind of have control of everything? So I guess it's just a personal preference, but what do you guys think about that?
Definitely for me, a little bit stressed. There's some like principle of like you use up the amount of time that you're given, or it's like if you're using your toothpaste, you might squirt out a bunch, but then when you get to the end, you're going to be really, really cognizant of like just using enough, making sure you get every drop. And I don't know how scientific this is, but it's like the theory is if you give yourself 2 hours to complete a few tasks, a lot of times you're going to take up that time just because that's like what you've given yourself, even if they're like done quicker. Versus if you have a little bit of pressure, that can give your mind like, okay, I need to figure out a shortcut, or I need to figure out like how to get this done faster, or just like pound this out. And a lot of time that looks like deadlines or things that you have to get in or submitted or over to a client, and you figure out how to get it done within that timeline.
Interesting.
Yeah, I know that I'm most productive before I eat lunch. That's something like when I eat, I'm slow. I cannot explain it really, maybe because of the food but before lunch in the morning, I'm most productive. Later in the day, like I build up work concentration until the lunch, and like hour and a half before I work the best, and then I eat, then I'm slow for an hour.
There's also some science to show that when you're in a slightly like adrenaline pumping state, that your concentration is up a little bit. In general, your senses are peaked and your ability to focus and short-term memory goes up. But it runs your adrenaline system, which is a system that has like secondary consequences. And that's kind of like the real physical experience of burnout, where you might be like, you have 2 cups of coffee and all of a sudden you're in the zone and you're really going and you want to keep that going. And so you keep pushing. And then you have to sleep for like 10 hours that next night. You're like, oh, my body had a physical experience. And that was like because you pushed the adrenaline system too hard. And so, yeah, there's science to show that when you're really pushing it, you're kind of like, maybe like coming down to the line and your adrenaline's pumping, that you do have those kind of peaks in cognitive function. But I think in everybody's productivity toolkit, it probably is a good situation to have tools on both the relaxation productivity side and the under intensity or duress kind of productivity side. So tools for both sides, I think, would be a really good situation. But you really nailed it. There is something about that, like down to the wire thing, that really does make stuff get done.
Yeah, I think some of it is like you have to have creative freedom and like open-ended time to like do and think through things. And then, yeah, it really just depends on the task. Can't be all one or the other for sure.
Great job. Good material.
Yeah. Awesome.